What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So, yes, USC did get a bunch of new transfers this whole week. Yes, I mentioned Brenden Rice a couple of videos ago, the son of Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, who's at Colorado, decided to transfer to USC. Definitely happy about that. It's a good get for the depth for USC at the wide receiver position. And then they also stole a running back from Stanford, Austin Jones. Apparently, he was a four-star guy. He was supposed to get a lot more of the playing time, but it kind of went to Nathaniel Pete this last season, so he decided to move on. And he is a Southern Cal kind of guy, so yes, luckily, I think as of right now, they only have 3 other running backs. They might add another one. You never know, but yes, nice that they're stealing a lot of these guys from the teams that they play against. Another guy, they actually got 2 cornerbacks. First one was Mekhi Blackmon. He's also from Colorado. Supposedly another talented guy. Obviously, if these are the defensive guys, they're coming from Alex Grinch, who wanted them on his staff, or on his team. So luckily and hopefully that these guys are talented players. And also they took another guy from Oklahoma in Latrell McCutchin, who is also considered another 4-star player. I forget what grade he's in, but I'm sure we'll have him at least for another 2 or 3 seasons. Looks like a pretty fast dude as well. And then they did also have some other news coming, actually leaving their team, in Ishmael Sosmer, the defensive tackle who came from Alabama last year. Hardly played because they found out he had blood clots earlier last year, and it took him forever to finally get healthy, and never really played later last year, and it's kind of just best for him to move on. He was always considered a top guy, but never really panned out, and sucks for that injury, but maybe his next destination will help him out a lot better. Then Kendrick Nunn of the Lakers once again suffered a setback in his injury process, so once again his debut is going to be delayed. Don't know what time until, but once again it's just a tough thing because they paid this guy a little bit more than a lot of the other players that they signed because they thought he was going to be able to stick around for at least a couple years, but it doesn't look like it might happen. And he is also a guy mentioned in a lot of trades, as the Lakers do decide to make a trade before the trade deadline in February, but we'll see how that goes. He could be traded before he ever plays a game with the Lakers, which is pretty crazy, but we'll see. Then USC basketball played yesterday, pretty early in the day, and they did beat Colorado 61-58. Apparently it was a lot better of a defensive game, but it came close towards the end. But yes, a lot of guys step up. Mobley and everybody else who's supposed to step up did for them. So definitely glad that they got that victory in the Pac-12. Then LeBron James became the only player in NBA history the other day to at least have 30,000 career points, 10,000 career rebounds, and 9,000 career assists. So it's definitely a pretty crazy thing for any player to do that. That's why he's considered one of the greatest of all time. Even I saw on Bleacher Report that they had Jordan he had a quote saying that even he believes LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. So I guess it is true, but obviously we know who has more championships out of those 2 guys. Then when it comes to Mel Kiper Jr., one of the main guys for ESPN when they do the mock drafts and everything like that before the draft starts, he has them selecting Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle from Georgia, who I've been saying they should go after as well. So hopefully he does end up lasting that long. He is a very talented player, so usually they don't last, but hopefully the Chargers can get lucky again. Speaking of Telesco, about him being lucky on some of his better players, yes, the GM for the Chargers recently had an hour-long press conference to end the year, and one of his bigger things, he said a lot of crap, but one of the bigger things he said was that he does not worry about his job security, or he doesn't even think about job security because he's so focused on what's going on with players and throughout the season. He's always looking forward to the next year, never really looking back, even though he said right now he's still focused on this last season instead of going into free agency and seeing which other guys on the team right now who they should re-sign or give bigger contracts And I don't know why he hasn't been thinking that, unless he believes he's going to get fired, hopefully. But it is pretty late in the process. I think they're going to have to stick with them, which sucks. But I don't know. A lot of stuff he said too, like mentioned saying that, yeah, he believed that they had a great team, but when it came to the end of the year, they kind of just fell off because of depth. But he's the only one to blame for that, because he's the one that okays everything, whether they make trades or sign other players or sign the secondary players as well. And a lot of those players that they signed or even he drafted obviously weren't good enough to play in the NFL and back up a lot of our starting players. So only one to blame but himself, and he was getting very kind of aggressive and protective whenever somebody asked him a more serious question and all this other stuff. So yeah, I don't understand why he's still there, in my opinion. Then yes, earlier this last week, the Lakers did beat the Utah Jazz, which was surprising because they had recently lost to a crappy team. They beat the Jazz, and then the next game they played a really crappy Indiana Pacers team and lost in that game as well. So pretty much everybody's been saying that Frank Vogel's job is on the line. He's on a game-to-game basis and all this stuff. But then after a couple days, it came out that they weren't going to judge him based off of that. And then even in that Indiana game, something pretty interesting happened to where he benched Russell Westbrook in the final 7 minutes of the game, never put him back in, just because according to him, he wanted to win with the guys that he put out there. And obviously it's been a lot of talking on ESPN that Westbrook wasn't even playing defense and didn't even know how to guard a certain guy, even though the report said how to guard him, and didn't do anything like that, just like days ago and gave up. And I don't know, Westbrook came out and said something later, but even a guy like Charles Barkley recently said that he hates that everybody's using either it's Russell Westbrook or the coach Frank Vogel as a scapegoat, when they should be really looking at the general manager, Rob Pelinka, because he's the one that pretty much okayed everything. And yeah, when you have LeBron and AD on your team, you kind of see what they want and go by, the players that they suggest. But I don't know. Even like he said, this team would have been great in 2010, but not in 2020 just because of how old they are. I understand what the Lakers wanted to do, but a lot of these guys have been injured and didn't even start off the season. Even the younger guys who were supposed to step up haven't even played. So a lot of questionable decisions. Obviously, they hit on Malik Monk, who everybody was surprised that they even got in free agency. But even he's a guy who they might end up trading just because he's been one of their better players, and you need some type of bargaining chip because nobody's going to want to trade for Russell Westbrook and all this stuff. So I don't know. And even The Ringer came out with some 10-minute video explaining the idea of Russell Westbrook and how everything's going and how he should fit with the Lakers instead of just, playing the way he does. I mean, even guys that are even on the team right now, Dwight Howard and Carmelo Anthony, they both changed their games in order to be able to still be playing in the NBA and on the Lakers. And yet a guy who's a younger, more athletic, better player than them, Russell Westbrook, doesn't want to change his attitude or the way he plays or certain decisions he makes on the court. And even though it's a simple change, he still doesn't want to do it. It's tough, but hoping that maybe a trade for someone who's not playing. The only two players that aren't playing right now are Ben Simmons with Philadelphia, which I doubt they're going to be able to make that trade because it will require too much, like first round picks and other better players. And then a guy that might be available is John Wall, who hasn't played at all for Houston, but they kind of don't want him playing because they want to play their younger players. So why would they make a trade for an older player in Westbrook who's going to take a lot of the shots and plays away from those young guys from the developing? But I think he's a little bit easier to get, and he's been working out, he's ready, but he just hasn't been playing for Houston, just collecting those checks, and it's not a bad life right there. But I don't know, we'll see. Thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.